You wake up tired, not the kind of tired that sleep fixes, the kind that lives in your bones, that colors everything gray before you've even opened your eyes. There's a heaviness that greets you each morning, a weight that has nothing to do with what's on your calendar and everything to do with the simple fact that you have to be conscious for another 16 hours. You're not suicidal, you don't want to die. But if someone asked you genuinely whether you want to keep doing this relentless project of being alive, you'd hesitate. Because somewhere along the way, existence stopped feeling like living and started feeling like an obligation you didn't sign up for but can't figure out how to quit. This is the psychology of people who are tired of existing. And if that phrase lands heavy in your chest, if you felt something shift when you read it, stay here. Because what you're experiencing isn't laziness, it isn't weakness. It isn't even depression in the clinical sense, though it often lives alongside it. It's something more fundamental, a kind of existential exhaustion that comes from spending years in survival mode without ever being allowed to fully recover. Here's the paradox at the center of everything. The hypervigilance, the constant self-monitoring, the ability to keep functioning when everything inside you is screaming for rest, these strategies kept you alive. They got you through. But now those same mechanisms have become the architecture of your prison. Your nervous system never got the memo that the crisis is over. It's still running the emergency protocol, still flooding your body with stress hormones, still treating ordinary life like a threat that requires constant management. You've been sprinting for so long that you've forgotten what it feels like to walk. And now, even the thought of another day, another performance of normalcy, another sequence of tasks that prove you're a functional human feels impossibly heavy. The cruelest part, everyone around you thinks you're fine. You've become so skilled at the performance of okayness that nobody sees the scaffolding holding you upright. Nobody knows that every smile costs something, that every conversation requires calculations, that behind your competent exterior is someone barely holding on, counting down the hours until they can collapse alone and stop pretending. Let me be precise about what we're discussing here. This isn't sadness. This isn't even the absence of happiness. This is what psychologists call anhedonia, the inability to feel pleasure or find meaning in activities that should bring joy. But it's more than that. It's what I'd term existential fatigue, a deep, pervasive exhaustion with the basic mechanics of being human, with having needs, with having to maintain relationships. With the endless project of self-care and self-improvement and self-maintenance. Think of your nervous system as a smartphone that's been running background apps for years without ever being fully shut down. The operating system is still functional, but the battery drains in hours instead of days. Processing simple tasks takes twice as long. The whole system is just slow, labored, struggling under the weight of processes that were never meant to run indefinitely. This happens through what neuroscientists call allostatic load, the cumulative burden of chronic stress on the body and brain. When you spend extended periods in fight or flight mode, whether from trauma, chronic anxiety, prolonged difficult circumstances, or the grinding pressure of just trying to survive in a world that feels hostile, your body's stress response system never fully resets. Your HPA axis, which regulates cortisol and other stress hormones, becomes dysregulated. Your baseline shifts. What should be temporary crisis management becomes your permanent operating state. The prefrontal cortex, responsible for decision-making and emotional regulation, shows reduced activity. The amygdala, your threat detection center, becomes hyperactive. But here's what's particularly insidious. Your default mode network, the brain's resting state, the mental space where creativity, daydreaming, and self-reflection happen, becomes dominated by rumination. When your mind wanders, it doesn't wander toward possibility or imagination. It wanders toward threat assessment, self-criticism, catastrophic thinking. Even rest becomes work. You also develop what psychoanalysts call depersonalization, a disconnect between your sense of self and your embodied experience. You start to feel like you're piloting your body from somewhere behind your eyes, going through the motions, performing the script of your life without fully inhabiting it. Nothing feels quite real, nothing touches you deeply. You're functionally present but existentially absent, watching your life happen through glass. And there's another layer. Many people who feel this way have experienced what's called complex trauma, not necessarily one catastrophic event, but rather a sustained period of stress, neglect, or emotional invalidation that taught them the world is fundamentally unsafe, and they are fundamentally alone in managing that reality. This creates what trauma therapist Pete Walker calls a freeze response, a state of shutdown and numbing that's actually a sophisticated survival strategy. When fight and flight aren't options, the nervous system essentially plays dead, conserving energy and minimizing exposure. But let's talk about what this exhaustion actually costs you, not in productivity metrics or missed opportunities, but in the texture of your daily existence, in the slow erosion of everything that makes life feel worth living. There's a particular kind of grief that comes with being tired of existing, a grief with no clear object, no specific loss you can name. It's the grief of knowing that somewhere inside you is a version of yourself that feels things fully, that gets excited, that has energy for spontaneity and desire and connection. But that version is so deeply buried under years of depletion that you can't remember what they felt like. You can see evidence that they once existed, old photos where your smile reaches your eyes, journal entries full of hope and plans, but they feel like a stranger now, like someone you used to be in another lifetime. The philosopher Soren Kierkegaard wrote about the sickness unto death, despair so profound it's not about wanting to die but about being unable to fully live. He described it as a sickness of the spirit of the self, where a person is in despair at not willing to be oneself. For people who are tired of existing, there's a similar spiritual exhaustion. You're not actively suicidal, but you've lost touch with whatever made being alive feel like something other than a burden. You've forgotten how to want things, how to look forward to things, how to believe that effort might actually lead to satisfaction rather than just more effort. You sacrifice presence for survival moment after moment in ways so subtle you don't even notice anymore. You're in conversations, but only 70% there, the other 30% monitoring your performance, managing your energy, calculating how long you have to stay before you can leave. You say yes to things not because you want to do them, but because saying yes is easier than explaining why you can't. You scroll endlessly through your phone not because the content is engaging, but because it's the only thing that doesn't require you to feel anything. The core fear driving all of this is the fear of your own capacity for breakdown. You know on some deep level that if you stop moving, if you stop managing, if you allow yourself to fully feel the weight of everything you're carrying, you might not be able to get back up. So you keep going, you maintain the performance. You tell everyone you're fine, and the gap between your external functionality and your internal devastation grows wider every day until you feel like you're living a lie so comprehensive you can't remember what the truth would even look like. Simple moments become complex. Someone invites you to dinner and instead of feeling pleased, you feel the immediate calculation. How much energy will this cost? How long will I need to recover? Can I afford to be on for 3 hours? A friend texts asking how you are, and you feel the weight of having to construct an answer that's honest enough to feel authentic, but vague enough to avoid follow-up questions. Even joy, when it appears, feels suspect, like something you can't trust, something that will demand payment later in the form of deeper exhaustion. You live in a state of constant triage, always deciding what you can let slide, what requires the bare minimum, what you can fake your way through, and you're so used to operating this way that you don't even realize how abnormal it is, how much energy other people seem to have, how easily they seem to navigate things that feel Herculean to you. Now let's map how this exhaustion manifests in your adult life, in specific, recognizable patterns. Because people who are tired of existing develop particular coping strategies that shape everything about how they move through the world. You might be someone who has become a master of the low-effort lifestyle, not because you're lazy, but because you've learned to ruthlessly eliminate anything non-essential. Your apartment is sparse not by design, but because decorating requires energy you don't have. You eat the same meals on rotation because decision fatigue is real and choosing what to cook feels impossible. You've optimized your life down to the bare bones of survival, and even that feels like too much. You become an adult who cancels plans constantly. You make commitments when you have a brief surge of energy or hope, then when the day arrives, the thought of leaving your house feels insurmountable. You craft elaborate excuses, work emergencies, sudden illness, family obligations, because "I don't have the energy to be a person today" isn't something people understand. You feel guilty every time, but not guilty enough to override the sheer relief of staying home. You might be someone who has entire relationships that exist only in text. Phone calls feel too demanding, too immediate, requiring too much real-time emotional processing. Video calls are worse, you have to manage your face, your environment, your energy in real time. But texting you can do from bed in your own time with breaks between responses to gather yourself. Some of your closest friendships are maintained almost entirely through messages. And you tell yourself that's just the modern way, but you know it's really about capacity. You become an adult who experiences Sunday scaries on steroids. That dread isn't limited to Sunday nights, it's every night, every morning. The constant awareness that another day is coming, another performance is required, another 24 hours of maintaining the illusion of okayness. You wake up already mourning the day you haven't lived yet because you know exactly how much it's going to cost you. You might be someone who has a complicated relationship with sleep. You're exhausted all the time, but you also resist going to bed because sleep means the day ends and tomorrow starts. So you stay up scrolling, watching things you don't care about, finding meaningless ways to extend today because at least today is almost over. Sleep becomes both the thing you desperately need and the thing you avoid because it brings you closer to the next day you have to survive. You become an adult who feels a strange, shameful envy toward people with clear, acute problems. Someone with a broken leg gets rest and sympathy. Someone grieving a loss gets space and understanding. But you're just tired of everything, tired of nothing specific, tired in a way that has no diagnosis and therefore no treatment and definitely no sympathy. You feel like you're drowning in 3 feet of water, which makes the drowning somehow more humiliating. You might be someone who fantasizes not about success or romance, but about disappearing. Not dying, just ceasing to exist in the world's awareness. No responsibilities, no expectations, no one needing anything from you. You daydream about having a medical condition that would hospitalize you for a month, nothing fatal, just serious enough to justify complete withdrawal from life. You think about running away, starting over somewhere no one knows you, where you have no history and therefore no obligations. Here's what's crucial to understand. These aren't character flaws. These aren't signs that you're failing at life. These are trauma responses. These are nervous system adaptations to prolonged stress. Your brain and body are doing exactly what they're designed to do when resources are depleted. They're shutting down non-essential systems to conserve energy for survival. The work now isn't to push harder, to force yourself to be more engaged, to shame yourself into functionality. The work is to recognize that your exhaustion is real, valid, and has roots that go deeper than simply not trying hard enough. The work is to stop asking, "Why can't I just be normal?" and start asking, "What happened that made existing feel this heavy?" So what does recovery actually look like when the problem isn't that something happened to you, but that being you in your life in this world has become unsustainable? First, you have to acknowledge that you're in crisis even if your life looks fine from the outside. You have to reject the cultural narrative that says exhaustion is just the price of modern life and instead recognize it as a symptom of a nervous system in distress. This isn't about being more resilient. This isn't about better time management or self-care Sundays. This is about fundamental nervous system healing. You need what trauma therapists call titrated rest, not just a weekend off, but sustained, guilt-free, non-productive time where your only job is to exist without agenda. This feels impossibly indulgent to people who are tired of existing because you've been taught that your worth is tied to your output. But your nervous system needs to learn that safety doesn't require constant vigilance, that you can rest without punishment. That not doing is a valid state of being. You have to practice what's called somatic awareness, learning to actually feel what's happening in your body instead of dissociating from it. This might mean working with a somatic therapist, practicing gentle movement like yoga or tai chi, or simply taking 5 minutes a day to scan your body and notice sensation without judgment. The goal is to slowly rebuild the connection between your consciousness and your embodied experience, to stop living exclusively in your head as a survival strategy. You need to challenge what psychologists call toxic productivity, the belief that you must be constantly useful, improving, achieving to justify your existence. This might mean deliberately doing things badly, pursuing hobbies with no goal beyond enjoyment, saying no without offering explanations or alternatives, giving yourself permission to be disappointingly average at things or to quit things entirely without replacement. You have to practice what the Buddhist teacher Pema Chodron calls staying with the shakiness, learning to tolerate discomfort without immediately trying to fix it, numb it, or escape it. When the existential dread rises, when the weight of existence feels crushing, instead of scrolling or sleeping or distracting, you practice sitting with it, breathing with it, letting it be there without making it mean something catastrophic about who you are. And perhaps most radically, you have to grieve what you've lost. The years you spent in survival mode, the experiences you couldn't fully have because you were too depleted, the version of yourself that might have flourished in different circumstances. This grief is real and it deserves space, time, and tenderness. The psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor Viktor Frankl wrote, "When we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves." But I'd add this, sometimes the change we need isn't to become stronger or more resilient. Sometimes the change is to finally allow ourselves to be soft, vulnerable, and imperfect. To stop surviving and start living, even if living looks quieter and smaller than you imagined. Healing doesn't mean returning to high functioning. It means finding a sustainable way of being that honors your actual capacity, not the capacity you think you should have. It means building a life that doesn't require constant depletion to maintain. It means accepting that you might always need more rest than others, more solitude, more gentleness, and that's not a failing. That's just what your particular nervous system needs. The goal isn't to stop being tired. The goal is to stop believing that your tiredness makes you broken, to stop forcing yourself to perform vitality you don't feel, to stop measuring your worth by your productivity. The goal is to discover what it means to exist rather than perform existence. You're not lazy, you're not weak, you're not failing at life. You're a nervous system that's been running on emergency power for too long, and what you need isn't motivation, it's restoration. What you need isn't discipline, it's permission to finally stop. If this video gave words to something you've been feeling but couldn't name, share it with someone else who's tired. Subscribe if you want to keep exploring what it means to be human in a world that often makes being human feel impossible. And remember, your exhaustion is information. Your body is trying to tell you something. Maybe it's time to finally listen. You don't have to earn your rest. You don't have to justify your limits. You are allowed to be tired. You are allowed to need more than you're currently giving yourself. You are allowed to exist without constantly proving that your existence is worthwhile. You always were.